world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, our continuing investigation into adaptations of the works of Stephen King or ancillary material connected to said adaptations, as may be the case this week. I'm John Campbell. With me, my partner for this investigation, Elliott Lewis.
Yeah, John, I came back to Ludlow because someone told me there was still meat on these bones, but I gotta say, they were wrong.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is so. It's interesting where we are in our investigation into the Stephen King adaptations, because we've done all of the actual we've at least seen an adaptation of all the books we're going to see adapted this season. For the
yes.
Basically. And now this is the first of movie sequels to movies based on those books, which we're going to get a couple of. And now, then the weird case that is Dr. Sleep.
I think at this point in the like filmic timeline, I'm pretty sure we have at least one Children of the Corn sequel.
Oh, yes.
But, right, that is a separate.
We've talked about that we haven't done Children of the Corn only because that is a season unto itself that I promise we will do someday. We will absolutely do the Children of the Corn movies, because the in putting this show together and looking at some of the future seasons that I've talked about doing, there's often things where I'm like, well, we're going to do this, except for not that, because that's a complete tangent on its own. And that's very much the Children of the Corn, which really, at this point, I think people are almost surprised it was a Stephen King thing, because it's so grown into its own like B horror phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so far away from. Have we actually gotten to Children of the Corn yet?
No, actually, this Pet Sematary 2 is where it starts to go off the rails, I think.
Oh,
because
interesting.
Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice, comes out the next year.
Oh, interesting. In
93.
But they make up for lost time, though, by making 800 more of those. Yeah. Because Children of the Corn 1 comes out in 84, which I think we mentioned. Because, let's see here, once again, this same year, 1992, also sees one of the most interesting King not adaptations, which is The Lawnmower Man.
Oh, yeah.
Which is where that literally led to a lawsuit where Stephen King sued to get his name taken off of it, because it basically had nothing to do with his short story, and they were really coasting off of his name on that one, and he won that lawsuit.
Yeah, and I think he saved himself some time and money with this one by taking his name off of it before it actually came out.
And I will say on this one, I couldn't find any quotes. We often do What Does Uncle Stevie Think? I couldn't find any direct quotes about this movie, but I think that alone should tell you right there. There's your early What Does Uncle Stevie Think? He was just like, go ahead and get my name off of this thing.
Just go ahead and
you know what?
I don't brand off.
I don't need the checks on this one. It's not worth it. And so this is basically a wholly new thing. I just wanted to see if I'm missing anything in the interim of what we. There's not much happens between the It miniseries and this. I want to see, was there another miniseries in here somewhere? No,
no, because the Stand miniseries came out after Pet Sematary 2, I believe.
In 1991, there's a TV movie of Sometimes They Come Back.
Interesting, I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I have seen this DVD cover. Yes, I think that's the only King adaptation that comes between 1990 and which is 1992's Pet Sematary 2. And let's see, what is this? There's an episode of we were obsessed with the anthology show for a while there in the late 80s, early 90s. There's an anthology series called Monsters on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they did an adaptation of his story, The Moving Finger.
Oh, okay.
Wow, I've never heard of this show.
I haven't either.
That's interesting, yeah. With Tom Noonan.
It would be fascinating to see.
Yeah,
considering The Moving Finger is about just a real long finger.
Yeah.
Got to see how bad that effect looks.
Yeah, it does. It stars Tom Noonan, though, who I love and is just inherently creepy. So, yeah. But so that's about it for what was going on. Oh wait, he does do a mini series. That's his own original screenplay for a mini series in '91, Golden Years. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Golden Years is from part of its 1991 schedule. This was a longer form miniseries. King called Golden Years a novel for television. Originated as an idea for a novel that sat in his notebook for years. You've got to love that.
Yep.
Steve, you sitting on anything that we can exploit into some money? He called it.
Yeah, I got something in the trunk.
He called it his attempt to do Twin Peaks. I've never seen it.
I have. That could be an interesting bonus-ode.
Yes.
Or bonus episode.
Yeah, because apparently they made 7 episodes as a miniseries. It was meant to kick off a series, but no. I guess they weren't satisfied with what was there. So, yes, that is something to... I do want to point people towards the Patreon page because I think we have to do a bonus episode over there about Maximum Overdrive, don't we? I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we don't comment on the movie he directed, what are we even doing here? So
what are we even? Yeah.
Yeah, you want to head over to our Patreon page for that because that's going to be. I think that's going to be a thing for IP Squad now. There will be at least one IP Squad like After Hours kind of,
what would that be? I'll try to think of we'll try to think of a name for it.
Yeah. But
special.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing. So there's going to be at least probably one, because I already have an idea for what next season's one is going to be. So things that are tangentially related, but not expressly part of the IP we're looking at. But anyway, all that leads us...
So, hey, John, should we start talking about Pet Sematary 2?
Oh, Jesus. Pet Sematary 2. What happened? Because... Wow. I mean, I have an idea of what happened, but yes, let's talk about Pet Sematary 2. So 1992, this is 3 years after the first film, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. Returning director Mary Lambert, which we were talking about just before this, that is just so fascinating that this comes from the same director. Mm-hmm. Because this is its whole, and pardon the pun here, its whole own animal. Jesus.
Nice.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Yeah.
Where to start?
So, yeah, I literally don't even know.
Yeah.
I guess the important place to start is it is set in the same, we're back to Ludlow.
Yes.
The Creed house is empty. It is... a boarded up band.
Yeah, this is one of my big questions for this movie, just from its larger, is how much time has passed? Because according to the Wikipedia, it's the real amount of 3 years. Yet the Creeds are this urban legend within the story.
Yeah, I listen. I'm not from a small town, so
right.
In a place like Ludlow that looks like Derry, really, if you really think about it.
What?
How long does a guy murders his whole family and his neighbor? How long does that take, really, to become a ghost story? I don't know.
I don't know either, but it does feel these kids might have known Ellie Creed, maybe, or ish, or at least yeah, that's the thing where I'm going, it's so close that it would be oh yeah, I saw that guy. not to the place of they say he did this, and it's very fast to be like it's real and tangible still 3 years later. It feels like it wouldn't yet become an urban legend as much as it'd be like, didn't you hear about that terrible thing that happened to the Creeds? I don't know.
The kids are also pretty.
Well,
I mean, listen, Clyde sucks shit.
Oh, and every time they say the name Clyde Parker, it really, I was like, what? Am I hearing this right? Clyde Parker, you say? Now, according to the screenwriter, that was a combination of Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, the real Bonnie and Clyde. He took their names and made, but I'm like, okay, sure, but also it's one letter off of sort of Stephen King's, one of his big horror contemporaries. So,
and honestly, though, I would expect that from the writer of such hits as Journey to the Center of the Earth 2.
Yeah, this guy, Richard Oughton, really weird. He has 6 credits in his entire career. One of them is
wild.
The Little Nemo animated movie.
Right, which by all accounts kicks ass.
Yeah. I remember that's one of those you talk about like is far in the back of my childhood brain and I haven't seen in forever, but is well thought of. And then wrote on right after this, he writes one episode of The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., Bruce Campbell's criminally underrated Western sci-fi show. He wrote a movie in 1987 called Lionheart that I think I have to remember come the time when we're inevitably going to do 80s fantasy movies on this show. But
okay. And I guess it's not the same line. Okay, yeah, it's not the same Lionheart that we talked about with everybody's favorite Van Damme.
No, I wish it was that one. That one's amazing. And then the only other thing he did was a TV movie called Last Rites with Randy Quaid. So, very weird career on this guy.
Yeah.
And then nothing between 1998 and 2012 and the aforementioned Journey to the Mysterious Island.
Yeah, just a weird career. And this, I would love to know. This is one of those movies where I think that there is very little, unless you found something more than the Wikipedia page, which is basically all I found.
Yeah, I
would love to know
a few little factoids
about the making of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those movies where, like, nobody really cares except for, like, 4 people, and I'm 2 of them.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. We run into this a lot on Meet the Monsters as well, where it's like no one bothered to document anything or write anything down or take any pictures even. Because it's just the biggest thing I saw in terms of the development of this, and I think you probably saw this on the Wikipedia page, is that Mary Lambert's original pitch for this was that it would have followed Ellie Creed as a teenager.
Which...
That's
Again,
something.
Don't know if there's a lot of meat on those bones, but would have been.
That's something.
At least made sense. It would have at least made sense as a follow-up.
Exactly, and it would have at least started with an inherent drama of someone who lived through this. Instead, we basically, in this movie, have to hit the reset button, and it does that thing I hate that horror sequels do, where it's like, okay, now we have to hear all again about all the horror stuff we already know from the last movie. And so it's that it's like horror movies often, although it's weird because they do sequelize often very well, but they frequently don't at the same time, much in the same way that like romantic comedies don't sequelize, because it's sort of like, well, where do you go?
You have to like invent the same problems over. Everybody has to have the same problem and find the same solution all over again.
Yes, that's very much the case. This movie is such a perfect example of a horror sequel. Like, there are so many sequels to horror movies that feel a lot like this movie. Mm-hmm. But of course, Paramount being Paramount and it being the 90s, they were like, a girl? We can't make a movie about a girl.
Get John Connor in there.
We hear this John Connor kid is hot. And yes, this is Edward Furlong he's coming off of, it can't be overstated how huge Terminator 2 was. That thing was a massive phenomenon of epic proportions. Instantly came out and broke every box office record. Massive hit. And so he's coming off of the heat of that, and that was his first movie. Wonder why he ended up being sort of a troubled fellow. And this is his second movie.
Yeah, that's what a...
But kind of a huge step down. Except for this thing is promoted as him. Like, the poster is him.
Yeah.
There's got the star cloud here, but, like, you're talking...
He looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
He's styled almost exactly the same as he is in T2.
No, the second he pops into this movie, the second he walks up, I'm like, oh my God, it's the same, that 90s kid haircut where his hair is like... And he's like, Mom, I got it. And just, oh my God, he's such a weird presence. And that was what was sort of interesting about him and Terminator 2, is you're like, oh, sort of a unconventional kind of... he read as a real teenager, right? Like, he didn't read as a movie teen. Like we were talking about sort of with Jonathan Brandis last week with the...
Exactly.
This kid was like, oh yeah, he's just sort of like a punk kid. But then...
And to go... But... I want to be, like, so... as generous as possible.
Yes.
But, like, you go from your first big movie, which is, like, an action-adventure... sci-fi kind of thing that is probably, in my mind, would be a little easier of a task to act for. And then you have to basically pretend you watched your mom get electrocuted. His grief comes through, like, the grief comes through sometimes, but not consistently, and I wonder if that's to do with directing and studio interference and writing, but, like,
well, it also doesn't help.
I don't know. It feels like a tall order.
It's a lot. It's a lot because
14-year-old kid.
In Terminator 2, a lot of the heavy lifting is on Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger, right? And
yeah, in
some ways, and this is not a takeaway, Furlong's very good in that movie, but, like,
he is.
He's kind of a prop. I mean, he's the thing. He's the MacGuffin in the movie, right? They're all everyone is either trying to protect or kill John Connor in that movie. So it's more like he's more reactionary in it and sort of just going like, "Whoa, this is crazy." Whereas here, they're asking him to do really complex things. Now, in Furlong's defense, the script is also really letting him down in those moments, because it is hard to get a read on this character from the story. Like, he is, and especially as it goes forward, by the end of the movie, he's, like, been kind of corrupted by this thing and driven insane. I mean, not in, like, a supernatural way, but, like, in
a psych, but, like, it's, and I do, the way it's edited too, also, it doesn't do the audience a lot of good, because it seems like he flips his crazy switch. That's not a great term, but, like, he sort of flips the switch on
sort of
his,
what
like, psychological break. Like, off screen.
And then comes back from it very quickly. He's like completely broken / heading towards straight up evil for about 10 minutes of the movie, like, thereabout. And it comes out of nowhere. But if we want to talk about heavy lifting in this thing, Clancy Brown in this thing, who I love. He's one of my favorite actors. I love Clancy Brown. And whatever the effect ends up being, he is going for it. This is not a guy phoning this in for a single second. Holy God. No. And also, right from the moment he steps on the screen, I'm going like, oh, so you're the one who's going to do the main accent, and you are going to go for it. From his first line, I'm like, wow, he is leaning in.
And it's not too bad.
It's not. I mean, it helps that he's primarily like a voice actor. A lot of his career is. So I think he's a guy who, and I can kind of relate to this in what acting I do as well, is like, give me things. I think the Clancy Brown's a guy who's like, give me a voice, give me makeup, give me like a thing. I want, he's a real character actor in that sense. So he seems to be having a great time. I don't know if it is aiding the movie per se. I mean, it's certainly aiding my enjoyment of the movie, but I don't know about if it's actually helping the plot of the movie, which is kind of all over the place. That's my biggest, before we get back to Clancy Brown.
That's the thing.
It's not a focused film.
It's like, It's not. It meanders for
Yeah.
such a long time, and then all of a sudden a bunch of stuff starts happening, and it's like it's just kind of dull for a lot of it.
Yeah. At first I thought, oh god, this is going to be boring. And then it was like, oh no, wait, it's completely insane. You know, like by the last third of this movie is like, what in the fuck is happening? This thing just goes
Yeah,
nuts.
it's true. It's yeah, it's just it doesn't have the same. And I know we talked about during the Pet Cemetery episode that
No.
like some of the emotional beats don't quite
Mm.
hit, and the some of the stuff ended up a little campier
But
than we thought was
but
necessary,
the
which I although maybe that bit of campiness makes a little sense in
Well,
retrospect seeing
because
this
this
movie.
thing, yeah, exactly, yeah. Suddenly freed of old Uncle Stevie, we're getting campy 24/7 in this thing. But the yeah, that's an interesting point about this movie, though. Is it's all over the place. The thing about the first movie is, even if all the points don't land, you see the thematic threads of it, right?
Yes,
We even
exactly.
talk about how the novel is in some ways kind of anecdotal, but it's all contained within this thematic, sort of tent that it's in, right? This felt like this had to have gone through a lot of drafts because I can feel
Yeah.
like the 4 different plots and ideas, and there's pieces of all of them still in the movie. Because, like, if you pulled on any one of these threads and made it a movie, it could probably be a pretty interesting, like, dramatic horror film. But instead, you just get little snippets of, like, the Clancy Brown stuff, the stuff about the dead mom, the stuff with
The
the demon dog,
the dad and the maid and the like you're not my mom and
that boy, I feel
the
so.
bullies, and it's just
Oh, these bullies. These bullies who are like, we're going to give those bullies from It a run for their money in terms of
yeah.
homicidal rage. But, like, I feel so bad for Sarah Trigger, who plays Marjorie the maid, because it feels like her character was super important, and then the movie forgets about her only to bring her back to kill her. But it's like,
Yeah.
you can feel the pieces of the movie beginning, and instead it's just like, oh, right, was there a maid in this movie? Oh, right. And that was kind of a thing. And, like, so, oh my God, another guy who just is doing thankless work in this is Anthony Edwards, who's a really good actor, and is just, what is there to play in that character?
Yeah, oh yeah, the dad. And he
Yeah,
has this whole thing about investigating what like the stuff with the burial ground and
yeah. Which is, once again, it's all like pointless because we already saw the first movie, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah. By the way, good on Anthony Edwards. Right after this, he gets ER and makes a ton of money and does that forever. So you're like, good. But I'm sure he was just like, Jesus Christ, I'm in Pet Cemetery 2. Show me any TV pilots.
Yeah, any.
Where can
I'll
I
take
get
anything. I
solid,
hate that
consistent
damn
work?
dog.
Yeah. Well, because also does he have sex with that dog?
Oh God! I mean, there's so much going on. I was like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, the fucking lady mom with the dog head, and then I don't know, John. I don't know. There's so many weird sexual choices in this
So
movie, and I
many,
will just sort of leave it at that.
which is really not at all present in the first movie, which is interesting because there's some weird sexual stuff in the book, because of
In the
course,
book, yeah.
but not at all. All that is pretty much eliminated from the movie, and then here, lots of, oh my God, that sex scene, oh, what is that? Why?
Why?
Why and what? Like, what is that saying? Because
Yeah.
so
I
okay, so let's back up a little bit to because let's just pull on the thread of the parents here, because
okay. Yeah.
one of the most interesting choices is, we start the movie, it does the classic horror movie fake out thing of it's actually a horror movie. That needs to be banned from cinema. Please stop. Although, fun note from the IMDb, those skeleton hands is the skeleton arm from the It miniseries.
Wow.
Yeah. There's something no one would ever notice. So yeah, we have this woman who's This is another question I have, much like the how long is the urban legend thing be?
God.
Yeah, how
This is
famous
such a
is this
struggle.
actress? Because I can't. She appears to be in this biggest piece of schlock like horror movie thing, but also she has some level of fame because she's a famous Ludlow native because they're like literally when he goes to the school, there's a shrine to her having died. That Darlene Flugel is this actress who's playing Renee.
Renee,
And
yeah.
then later you have Anthony Edwards watching one of her old movies, which that is clipped from Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America, actually, what they took that footage from.
I did not know that.
I didn't recognize it until I read that. But an amazing movie that definitely watch instead of this. But that's another question I have is sort of like what's her. Obviously, she has some level of notoriety as
Yeah. She got invited to the Emmys. I don't know if she won one, but
she went there.
She
She wore that nice dress to the Emmys and it was memorable enough that instantly that housekeeper was like, "This is that dress she wore to the Emmys." I'd know this anywhere. But yeah, she's in this piece of
That's
shit
not surprising to me.
horror movie. That may just speak to my lack of interest in that. She's in this piece of shit horror movie. Which the other thing, I following her death, this kid is going to spend years in court, right, about this because this would be the single worst thing that's happened on a movie set since that Twilight Zone. Like,
Yeah.
it is such a fundamental failure of film set safety. What happens to her?
If she was in SAG, they're going to be all over that.
Well, and it's insane though because she's filming this scene where she's in some kind of old castle and these skeleton arms are grabbing her, and why there's a hose right next to like a junction box. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't be. I'm sorry, I gotta say, like this is the unless this is like deep Eastern Europe union shit. This is just not gonna happen. Also, insane to me that the gate would actually be like wrought iron and metal. It just wouldn't be.
Yeah,
On a set like that.
Y'all had the budget for that? Okay.
Yeah, but it also seems like you've
this
cheapened
movie?
out everywhere else except for get that metal. Yeah, because what ends up happening is the water hits the junction box and electrocutes the gate that she's holding onto, and this woman fries.
They linger on this shot, well, on the multiple angles of this moment,
Yeah.
I guess, for like a kind of tasteless amount. I would say there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I would describe as tasteless.
Yes, very much so. And what's so interesting, because I talked about this, I think I mentioned this, that something Mary Lambert said in the interview on the first movie's Blu-ray is she goes, I really didn't want to make something that was gory. I wanted to make something that was more psychological. And then here, this movie is just like, oh, we're going to indulge in there is no moment that we're not seeing every ounce of gore. Everything in this thing is, and some of that is like, look, I mean, I'm resident gorehound over on Meet the Monsters, but even I'm going like, all right, let's cool it, let's just cool it a little bit on Pet Sematary too, because not only does she hold on to this thing and she's being fried, but when her face hits the grate and it's burning, I'm just like, Jesus Christ! And we're watching this kid see his mother just get roasted. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So that's where we start. That's the
That's
first
the
what
opening
happens in this.
scene. Yeah. And I just love the director being like, all right, cut! Somebody cut! Like, that's his first thing. He's like, well, cut the film. Then we'll try to go save her. But it's just like, no, she is capital D
She is-
dead instantly.
Yeah.
Cut to one of the more insane cuts in a film I've seen. Cut to Anthony Edwards is killing a dog in his vet's office.
Yeah. But what we had learned prior to her being electrocuted,
Yes.
Between takes, is that
Yes.
she and Anthony Edwards are separated. I don't think they're divorced yet.
No, because she's talking about, like, because Edward Furlong's like, Mom, won't you just have dinner with Dad? Come on. You can tell it's not long after because he still has that, like, shitty, I'm in the throes of puberty voice. And which I guess he kind of still has, actually, but because he's right now, if you listen closely, you can hear Edward Furlong at a convention complaining about not being in Terminator 3. But he's always on about that. It's like, well, you're not insurable anyway. So yeah, she's talking about like, well, I'll have dinner with your dad, but I don't want you to get your hopes up. And immediately I'm thinking, oh God, is this going to be like some sort of attempt to do like a Spielberg Amblin? But we say all that because that creates so much weird emotion in the dynamic between Anthony Edwards and his dead wife, that when she's like back later as a zombie, I'm like, that's so weird, because I don't know what he's meant to feel, because like their marriage was already dissolving. Like, it just feels like they kind of robbed the potential, like, oh my God, my wife, when it started just like, well, I don't know, man, we were already sort of in a weird place, and now she's back from the dead. Which could also be interesting if you wanted to explore that in any sort of level of detail.
But he seems to be, as soon as he, like, remotely find, like, he doesn't even see, like, really believe it, but he is so adamant about Jeff. I was like, what's this fucking kid's name? Jeff.
Yeah.
Weird name for a kid.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's why it's totally forgettable. Jeff.
So adamant that Jeff does like not, he's like, oh my God, Jeff's gonna try to bring his mom back. This is not gonna happen. Jeff is not allowed to leave the house.
Yeah.
Like, he is so against this happening. So it's like he really doesn't even get an opportunity. Like, he gets like one sad scene about watching the same scene that Jeff was watching earlier from that movie.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, what?
That's as much as and that's what I'm talking about. Like, poor Anthony Edwards, just I don't know how you, as an actor, what's there to latch onto in this character? Because also then to immediately have the hot housekeeper who's doesn't look that dissimilar to his ex-wife. For a second, I thought they were going to maybe do a thing like that, where it's sort of like, ooh, she's like a, sort of a Vertigo-esque kind of thing. That would have been, that would have been too much for Pet Sematary too.
Yeah, but then of course she doesn't really get to be in the movie. So
no, she disappears. She's in it a lot, including the out of nowhere, "You're not my mom."
Like, I was just like, okay.
They should.
I don't even know why. Why am I a housekeeper?
Yeah,
I'm like 20.
I do love the moment. Like, the second they move it, they're moving all their boxes in, and she's just like, "Yes, hello, I'm your new housekeeper." Like,
I came with the house.
Yeah. Oh, because of course, in the aftermath of all this, Anthony Edwards goes, "That's it. We got to move to this creepy Maine town. That's how it's gonna be now."
Yeah. Were they both from Ludlow? Is that the implication?
That I could not tell. I don't know if they were. I didn't get the sense if the father was from Ludlow, because of course we immediately have piece of shit sheriff with absolutely no redeeming qualities as a human being, Clancy Brown. Like, I love that just like at no point is he not just the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
Show up to basically be like, yeah, hey, I fucked your mom in high school. I mean, basically, yeah, he just like, I took it to homecoming, and doesn't he have some line about like, we did everything together?
Yes.
And you're like, oh,
and Anthony
God.
Like, yes, I remember. That's why I think he's
maybe he is from the town,
like,
yeah.
Yes, I remember all of that. Thank you.
Gus Gilbert.
Gus
Gilbert.
Again, what?
Yeah, the names are and I feel like the father and son should switch their names, because Anthony Edwards' character is Chase and his son is Jeff. Chase is the better teenage boy name than Jeff. But yes, we have I love Gus Gilbert. Town sheriff. Yeah, he shows up going here.
I keep rabbits for some reason.
Oh boy, can we talk about one of the great moments in cinema history? Is Clancy Brown watching two rabbits have sex? Because
I don't get it. I don't get, like,
the whole movie is like this. I feel like every scene I'm just like, what?
Like, every scene is like, why is this happening? But so we're losing the. I mean, it's so easy to lose the threads. We're losing the thread on the dad.
The movie's losing the thread. So yes, so the dad has this. Like I said, it's the weirdest choice to have marital strife and then to kill the wife. You know what I mean? Like, immediately.
Yeah.
So that it throughout the whole movie, the thread on the dad is just like, I don't know what he's feeling beyond, of course, sadness, obviously, but like, how much grief is there if their marriage was already, in terms of the palpable emotions of the movie. There's the loss of this woman I loved, who's the mother of my son, but is that more in, I'm feeling more bad for my son because he lost his mother, rather than I lost my wife? Unclear.
Because there is just no, the movie is not interested in really following through on anything except Clancy Brown, really. Clancy Brown sort of ends up being like the main focus for a lot of the movie.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because it's sort of like, actually, once Clancy Brown shows up, the movie's kind of like, we're going to follow that guy now. It's like, wait a minute, shouldn't this kid and his father be? It's like, no, Clancy Brown's giving us some great shit, man. We got to follow him.
It's like, you did this.
This guy, I don't know. This guy's pretty interesting over here. Follow him as he goes home and abuses everyone in his life. Like, I just love that this guy's a piece of shit as a human and as an undead. He's just the worst fucking person in the world. I mean, he shoots a kid's dog.
He shoots his stepson's dog.
And then has the response like, I fucking told him about that dog. That's what you get. And boy, a really thankless role is Lisa Waltz, who plays Amanda, the Clancy Brown's wife,
mom,
who just has no reaction. Not in a like, I'm an abused woman, so I like, just nothing. Like, the camera doesn't even cut to her when he's shooting her son's dog. It's like, I want to see that any of this is registering with her.
Yeah, again, right? Like, the movie is not interested in really following through on any character's arc, including her.
Yeah. Particularly her, and then when she dies in the horrible potato truck accident. Worst potato truck accident I've ever seen. But yeah.
They got crushed real bad.
Crushed real bad by this. Literally, she ends up buried under potatoes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What a way to go.
What a way to go, indeed. So, and then, of course, then we have to talk about his stepson, Drew, who is, look, he's the town fat kid. We talked about it last week in It. This is not, this kid, this poor actor, only did 3 things, and his final role was in Forrest Gump, where he played the character of Fat Teen. So,
oh my god.
Yeah, I know. This was his first movie. They do, one of the only nice things is apparently he and Edward Furlong really bonded on this, and Furlong
That's good.
apparently was sort of a mentor to him, of teaching him how to act for film and stuff like that, which is interesting because he's coming off of one movie, but I was in Terminator 2, man. My Furlong and Feldman, I'm realizing, are the same voice. Yeah.
Well,
that's
also,
makes
like,
sense.
if the kid who played Drew like saw Terminator 2, and then he was like, "Oh my god, I don't know, I'm inventing all of this."
Yeah, for sure.
Just because you told me they bonded, like, they were best friends. Great.
Yeah.
But honestly, he does a really good job. Like,
he actually is good.
That's the sad thing is, like, Clancy Brown is really it's unfortunate that Clancy Brown is really the only one who gets like a lot of stuff to do, just basically because he is the bad guy.
Right.
But like, with the stuff that Drew gets to do, he's pretty good.
He's actually like, he also feels real in that way, right? He feels like a kid, like an actual kid, not like I always talk about this. There is and particularly I think of it as like Disney kids. There's like a sound and a rhythm to movie or TV kids that always drives me insane. And both he and Furlong have this. It's just, they feel real, but the movie also has no interest in actually exploring them. It's so weird that they're the only people on the poster for the movie. And yet, the movie kind of isn't about them. It's a little bit about Furlong. But then also, he drops out of Furlong. It really is, and it's so interesting, most of the, like, reading through the IMDb user reviews, everybody's talking about, oh, Clancy Brown. Oh my God, this is the Clancy Brown show. And you're like, agreed. That's where the movie is. And I mean, and I can't fault it. He's an amazing actor who is doing everything with this real schlocky B movie script. I mean, he is working. There are several times when I'm like, Clancy, you don't need to beat yourself up this much for this thing, man.
Yeah.
I am glad that he. What is it? Is it the next year or maybe 2 years? He then goes from this to 2 years later. He's in Shawshank, which is a much higher quality King related product, of course. And he's very,
that's right. Forgot he was in that.
Yeah, he's also a huge piece of shit in that movie.
Yeah,
Clancy Brown plays a lot of bad guys. I mean, it's just
because listen, he's a big guy.
He's a big guy with that deep voice.
That deep voice. He cuts a very imposing frame.
He really does, yes. I mean, and being a kid who was obsessed with this movie, he will forever be the Kurgan from Highlander to me. God damn, he rules in that movie. But of course, he's found a whole other career, and I love that several people mention this in their reviews as well. They go, do you know he's Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob? I can't believe it. Yeah, and you're like, yeah, he's an incredibly gifted voice actor who can do a lot of things. Yeah. So anyway, because he ends up stealing the movie to the point where it even feels like they're like, oh, write more stuff for him.
Because for listeners, I'm doing a lot of like nodding wide-eyed and incredulous during this. It's really hard to like say more than just like, what the fuck?
Because that's kind of what watching the movie's like. You're like, okay, movie.
Okay.
That's where you're going to go with this? Sure.
Okay.
Because we're saying all of this, and we haven't even got to the titular Pet Sematary.
No. It is... Okay. Okay.
I kind of figured this episode was going to be like, it's like, bring back Pet Sematary 2.
Okay. Gotta reel it in.
Yeah.
So... The other thing about Dr. Dad
Matthews.
Chase
Matthews.
Chase.
Yeah.
He is a veterinarian.
Yes.
So.
Oh, very clever, by the way. Of course, Pet Sematary. Yeah. So he's the veterinarian. Right.
So there is a very loose thread of, pet stuff. So Drew has his dog, Zowie.
Yes.
And Edward Furlong he finds a box of kittens and he keeps one.
But we have to get a horrible jump scare with the first kitten, which is pretty hilarious because it's a kitten.
It's just a kitten.
Yeah.
Max was not super interested in this film except for the kittens.
Yes. Yep.
I think his paternal instincts kicked in.
I must care for these children.
What is that?
Yeah.
Little baby? So the local bullies. Jeff takes the kitten to school, which, like,
it's a weird
I don't
move.
know how that would have worked anyway.
He's just got it, like, in his coat, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the local bullies take it upon themselves to take his cat and put it in a bird cage in the pet cemetery. This is how we learn about the pet cemetery.
Yes.
He chases the bullies on his bike.
Yeah, it does. They do just bring up the, like, hey, man, that's the old pet cemetery. You want to go there? That's where your kitty cat is.
Meow.
After we get this great action set piece of the cat on the bully holding the kitten on his bike. By the way, the main bully in this movie is Tom Hanks's friend from Big. He's the kid.
He is, isn't he? Okay, I was looking at that kid and I was like, I have seen this motherfucker somewhere and I cannot place it.
It is
and
that,
I didn't look it up because I forgot.
And he's also one of the kids in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So he's actually a pretty big kid actor at this point. And I think was this his sort of like, now I'm transitioning to bully roles because I'm getting older.
Bad kid.
Yeah, he doesn't work a whole lot longer after this. I'll just say, I mean, Hollywood burns these kids out. I don't know. It's no kid's fault. Yeah. It's you know what, folks, don't put your kids into acting. Not like this.
Not like this.
This is. I understand kids have to be in stuff, but like 9 times out of 10, it completely destroys their lives. Yeah.
Don't be like a parent who's like, I'm gonna live vicariously through my
Oh,
children and like take all their money. Like
yeah,
that's really what you want to avoid. So if you find yourself getting
that's the
into
big
that
one.
position, maybe like take a step back.
That's the big one. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So
Go
yeah.
read Go read Mara Wilson's book about being a
Oh,
child actor.
it's very good. And it's amazing how well spoken she is. But so oh, yeah, so that's where I ends up in the pet cemetery. Which we very lucky for the plot of the movie learn about it
Oh
just
yeah.
before Drew's dog is killed.
Yeah, because they sort of like do a like creepy shot of the deadfall
Yes,
uh while Jeff is in the pet cemetery. But then yeah, Drew's dog dies and
because
he is the one
yeah,
who is like
you got
yeah,
it.
so there's a different burial ground, you know, the Indian one,
Yeah,
quote unquote,
yeah.
and does the whole Fred Gwynn thing with I would say a little bit less gravitas, but he's
just
only a
a
kid. I can't
just a
blame him
little
for that.
bit, just a little bit. Then extremely talented veteran actor Fred Gwynn.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit less gravitas. But yes, that no, this is a new wrinkle in this, right? This whole idea about like you have to bury your own.
That's not a new wrinkle.
Is that not? Is that was that in the first one too? Okay.
No, each buries his own.
Yeah, that's the thing. This movie plays fast and loose with that though a little bit.
It's well, yeah, it
It
sort
well,
of
at
does.
least it starts to redefine what your own is, because then you start to get into like, well, Clancy Brown is burying people he killed, so that makes them his. We'll talk about later when he's in need of a henchman, which is my favorite
Yeah.
thing. He's just like, I'm gonna probably need a toady later in this movie, so
for 10 seconds again.
yeah,
'Cause-
yeah. Well, it really it is such movie logic where they're like, Edward Furlong needs to fight someone at the end, because obviously Anthony Edwards is going to fight Clancy Brown. Who's Edward Furlong going to fight at the end of like that's clearly the thinking.
Yeah.
You can feel in there. The only other thing I have about the writing too is now major screenwriter David Goyer did uncredited rewrites on this thing. And of course,
Interesting.
yeah, I think he probably for the best. I'm sure he was fine with. You know what? No credit is probably okay on Pet Cemetery too.
Like I'm doing my best over here,
Yeah,
but
dude,
I don't know, guys.
yeah, because this would have been very early in his career. Because he, of course, goes on to write the Blade movies, which, if you listen to Meet the Monsters, you know I'm fucking obsessed with. At least the first two, and then of course, huge success with the Dark Knight trilogy were his screenplays as well. And now he runs Foundation on Apple, so. He's come a long way from Pet Cemetery too, is what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing where it's like, if he was probably one of many writers that came in on this thing, and that's what I was talking about with all this stuff, where it's like maybe he came in and wrote some of this stuff, and then somebody else came in and goes,
Yeah.
I'm going to add a little bit of that. Because that's how Hollywood that's how major studio executives think a movie should be written. You want it to be a little funnier, get the funny guy. Then he'll write the funnier version of it. And then get this woman who writes the romance stuff. She'll put a little romance in there. And then this guy does action. You're like, oh my God. Yeah, that's how a movie needs to be written.
It's so weird how that doesn't work, and
Yeah.
how studio executives seem to be having such trouble these days
it's almost
with
like
writers.
it's almost like you can really tell when you watch a movie that it feels schizophrenic. And that's definitely the case here. Schizophrenic is how I would describe this movie for sure. It's all over the place. Because Clancy Brown shoots the stepson's dog because he won't leave his rabbits alone, and he's selling these rabbits. Right? There's a sign where he's like, "Rabbits."
No, John. I don't know.
He's got a shit ton of rabbits, and he's
John,
doing something.
I'm pretty sure he just has the rabbits so that when he's undead later and weird and crazy, he can just skin them and sit on his porch.
That's which is like a lot of things in this movie. It's like that sequence is unsettling. Agreed. Yeah. Does it have anything to do with anything? I don't know, but it certainly is in isolation an unsettling image. The only thing,
and Drew and Jeff are just sitting there watching him like it's something to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of people just going like, "Ew," in this movie. Like, what is that about? I don't know. Ooh. There's a sign that's like rabbits $10 is the only thing I know that I did note
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't
No,
paying attention to that.
I clocked it very briefly, but it's like, but even still, like, great filmmaking to just go like, yeah, no, there's a sign over there that explains what the, but yeah, but anyway, this is the thing where I'm like, God damn it, Clancy Brown. He's like, get that dog out of the house, but then also make sure that dog leaves my rabbits. And I was like, you can't have it both ways, Clancy Brown. Either the dog's in the house.
He clearly just wants to shoot the dog.
Yeah.
Again, right? Like I can see, right? We can see this movie. We can see this movie. This, like, the mom's feelings and the stepdad, and he, hates his stepson and wants to make his life miserable, and he's just making a situation where he can justify killing the dog.
Yeah.
But the movie's not interested in that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because it sort of feels like, well, then that should be the movie, right? Like, then this kid should be the main character, and it should be about bringing the dog back. Because they bring the dog back pretty... By the way, this movie definitely had less money than the first one, right? It had to have, because that dead dog that they're carrying is fake as fuck.
Looks so bad.
And they're not even... And this is somewhat on... I don't know if one's getting directing, acting, but, like, somebody needed to tell them, like, well, the dog would have weight to it. They're just tossing around this dog puppet. Oh, God.
And the camera is, like... The framing of them, like, walking and Drew is carrying, like, they should have really closed up, like, that should not be showing the full puppet.
No.
Either. Like,
no, it's similar to the thing with the It thing, with the It miniseries as well, where it's like everything's a little too bright in this movie. I'm seeing a little too much of everything. Or the whole thing, and it makes sense because Mary Lambert comes with music videos. This one felt like a music video, and that has something to do with the, I guess we'll get to this now, the non-stop rockin' score.
Yeah.
Because we we praised the Elliott Goldenthal score in the first movie, which had this eeriness to it. And here, though, everything is ding-a-ding-a, born out doing a Pet Sematary.
I was reading one of the, like, reviews, like the truncated reviews that was on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was from, but it was like, this feels like an extended, like, episode of Creepshow, and it really does.
Very much so. Very much so. And that I was like, this came out in theaters? Because it feels really TV. We talked about, like, Lambert it comes and goes, as we talked about. Some stuff works better than others in the first movie, but, like, she had a cinematic eye in the first movie, and there are really effective bits of filmmaking in there, whereas here it feels real TV. The other thing,
and I don't know. Well, I mean, right, between lower budget and, like, just how bug nuts the writing process was. Yeah, like, I just don't know.
They wanted this thing out quickly, obviously, too, right? Like, I mean, there's 3 years. But this was definitely like, get us another one, because that thing was big. We talked about Pet Sematary was huge, and then even bigger on video. So in that interim, they're like, but I mean, here's an example of just from the trivia they talk about. She wanted to go. She's like, well, great, we're gonna go shoot in Maine again, and they're like, no, you got to shoot in Georgia. That's a lot cheaper. And they talk. They're like, it looks like Maine. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't really.
I didn't immediately identify it as Georgia, but I will say it didn't feel Maine to me, this one. It doesn't have that sort of gloomy Northeast vibe to it.
And it also is very clearly, like, the entrance to the Pet Cemetery, like, it's very clearly not on the same property.
No, not at all. I mean, and it's so interesting that, like, as a sequel, okay, they don't bring back any of the characters. Although I do love that they have a character who acts like he was in the first movie. Yeah. That's one of my favorites when we get to that guy later. And you're just like, and I had to look, I go like, am I forgetting? Was this guy? Nope, of course not. Well, we just watched it. But like, they don't do, like, the busy road. We don't see the Creed house or anything like that. There's not even other than the Pet Cemetery, which they've recreated on a stage or whatever, right? You know, it just doesn't even feel like it's the same thing. If it's meant to be these new characters in that same world, no, it feels completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the same Ludlow. I just want to see what became of Mary Lambert's career after. I mean, she kept working, but I'm just going like this had to really put a crimp on, because it's unfair. Like a lot of we've talked before about it. There's not a lot of women directors. It's ever so slightly just starting to get better.
Yeah.
But the one thing that for sure is the case, if one of these things doesn't work, then it's just like, well, that's what you get. You hired that woman.
Yeah. We hire a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think she goes hard into TV and stuff like that, and back to music videos. Oh God, she did an Urban Legend sequel.
Oh, beans.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
Is it Urban Legends: The Final Cut?
It's Urban Legends Bloody Mary.
Oh, I didn't even see that one. So.
Oh man, and then ends up at the Sci-Fi Channel. She is the director of Mega Python versus Gatoroid.
Oh,
no
God,
one
that's
should.
That's really depressing.
It's really depressing because the first movie, I did think she had some skill, and she's come back. She does a lot of network TV now, so that's much better. She directs. Oh, she did a Special Victims Unit. She directed on Arrow and The Blacklist, and so I mean she's still working, which is good. I mean she's still consistently directing. But yeah. I don't know who's to blame on this thing, I guess, is the answer. Because whatever kernel of talent I saw that's why I'm saying I was so shocked. I kept remembering go, this is the same director? Because this feels much worse. And it's just, there's also just parts of this movie that are just dumb. Like, I just kept going like, this is dumb writing.
Yeah.
And that's something, I think this is the first, like, actively bad movie we've done on here. Right? Because, like...
Yeah, right? Because, like...
everything's had its merits, at the very least.
Yeah, and this just, like... Yeah, I'm trying to, like... Did I like anything about this movie?
Oh, that's a good question. I liked a couple of the kills were kind of well done, but they don't really work inside of the movie. I mean, Clancy Brown does murder a kid with the back tire of a dirt bike, which is insane. I'm not sure that I can say I sincerely liked it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I liked that
as much as I was just like,
it was one of the more like exciting things that happened, I guess.
Yeah, like down the street. Same thing with the bully kid's head exploding after it gets electrocuted, where you're just like,
oh yeah,
whoa. But once again, yeah, these aren't necessarily like actively positive things as much as it's just like, I can't believe the movie just did that. Because so they bring the dog back. The dog is evil now because we are just doing. We had questions in the first movie about what changes the personalities, because the book gets way more into that, right? Like, it's not just because you have the creatures from the other dimension, stuff like that. You're basically, because remind me of, in the book you're basically being possessed by something, right? Isn't that kind of the idea?
And it's not necessarily like, because when Judd brings his dog back in the movie, they're like, it's like it comes back and it's all angry and mean. And in the book, it's more like it just wasn't the same dog ever again.
Right.
And so it seems like it's kind of a it's kind of like a lottery. Like, you bury something up there and you kind of just take what you get. And I guess the kind of like evil that's in there, like, if it gets enough, like, it gets fed by people burying things up there, and if it gets strong enough, it can do it can put evil out.
Whereas
from it.
In this, you just come back as a straight up monster.
Yeah. I
mean, just no doubt, absolutely, you are. I mean, even the first movie was closer to that, right? I mean, like, Gage comes back as a homicidal maniac with no explanation.
Like, even Church comes back and is just kind of an asshole for the rest of the movie.
Whereas, like, because when they bring this dog back, he's a full-on demon dog.
Yeah.
Which I do love. There are parts, though, where it's clearly just a regular dog. Like, this dog is so adorable. And I also thought, like when the dog is dying, it's sad in concept, but every time they cut to a close of the dog, I'm like, the dog is clearly just going like, so I lie here? You want me to stay here? Okay.
And I get, you want me to lie here and get pet?
Yeah.
So like lie on the lap and get
Yeah.
pet?
It
That's pretty kick ass.
That's one
I'm
of
not
those.
gonna lie.
That's one of those directing choices where I'm like, maybe don't cut to the close up of the dog just looking like a dog, like,
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem like the dog is hurt and dying as much as it's just like, okay. And same thing with when it's evil. It's like they do the red eye effect on it, but still, it's like, I don't know. That kind of just looks like somebody's dog, kind of going, "Hey, everybody."
Yeah, I'm here too.
Yeah, it's just he's a big floofy dog. Like he's honestly, the dog and the kittens are the highlight of the movie just because they're adorable. But
Yeah.
and boy, nothing comes of Edward Furlong's kitten, does it?
No, that's another thread that just sort of like you see it a couple times when he's asleep and having weird dreams about
After
his
he's
undead mom with a dog head.
Oh
But
God, they love that effect too, and they shouldn't.
they shouldn't.
It's so dumb, and then really dumb when it's boobs dog head.
Boobs dog head.
Because
like, what is that?
It's I mean, and I say that because that's literally what the shot is. It is a close up of someone's boobs, certainly not the actress playing the part. That's a given. And then dog head.
Just like a dog mask.
Yeah, literally a dog. It's a dog head atop a woman's body. Like it really is just. It's one of those things where I'm just going like, my God, who signed off on this? And once again, in that lighting, okay, I can clearly see how stupid that looks. But they play it like, once again,
Right, again, it's
Anthony
not
Edwards.
scary.
No, and Anthony Edwards is doing his best to go, oh my God,
A dog head on boobs.
Do you think at any point he was ever just like, God, I was in Top Gun, Jesus Christ? I'm still waiting for.
I don't know. Maybe he crashed his car and he needed a quick buck.
That's always what I think about these things. It's like, well, we need a new kitchen, Anthony. So
Yeah.
Actually, the only thing that comes out of this is Anthony Edwards did marry one of the makeup artists on this movie. Did meet, and you know what? So something good came out of it for him, at least.
Do you think they joke about that?
remember you were fucking that lady with the dog head in them? Oh yeah, that's where we got together. He's like, God damn.
Never gonna let me live down the dog.
He's like, God damn, this movie's terrible. But that makeup artist is pretty cute, though. Like, not bad. But yeah.
Can you take out the trash? Do I have to? Well,
you did.
You did the dog head boob thing,
Yeah.
so I think you have to take.
Oh, she's got me again. It's true. There's no comeback. But yeah. So now I've completely lost my train of thought with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. But no.
So did the movie.
No, that's exact. Oh no, it's not. But yeah, so I was saying the thing with the kitten though is once he saves it from, then it's just kind of around. It never like comes back into the plot in any way, and that's fine.
They do apparently save it from the house burning down, which would have been something nice to see when they were escaping. But we don't have time for that.
Oh no, it's you've got to. Oh boy, the end of this movie. I will save it because my God, the end of this movie is insane. For a lot of reasons. But so the dog comes back. It's the dog that ends up killing Clancy Brown, right?
Yes, at the Halloween pet cemetery party.
Oh God! By the way, the lamest grouping of these stupid. Why are they? What they're hanging out with the bullies?
Jeff, why are you here? You hate this guy, and Jeff, like on screen, is just constantly rolling his. Like, is there nothing else to do?
There must be no one in this town, right? Because like, although there are other kids at school, but whatever.
We don't have time for that, John.
No, there's clearly no time. Not in this thing, man. We got, But yeah, it made no sense to me that they're out hanging out with the bullies out in the pet cemetery. And this is where we get the whole, like, they say that Creed. And then there is the story about, and Ellie Creed went to a mental institution and she killed everybody. And you're like, wait, what? Oh, no, she killed her grandparents. And then I'm just going like, was that true? Probably not. Probably not. But I don't know. Because why even bring up Ellie Creed then?
Because it's something from the first movie.
Remember the first movie? It's the same thing with that guy who was the what is he, like the whatever store owner or whatever he is in that?
What?
Oh no, he does he's the taxidermist guy. The guy earlier.
Oh, the previous veterinarian.
Yes, that's the guy, right? Yes, that guy is the guy who's also like, I remember that from the first movie, except I wasn't there.
I think it's implied that like after Lewis, I guess, kill like he and Rachel kill each other in a
Yeah,
knockdown drag out fight in the kitchen.
yeah.
I think it's implied that after that he like no, because
It's
they're
not enough
saying
time.
no, and they're saying like you sent me a blood sample from a dead animal. So if he was the one to like get Church after all of
Yeah.
that, Church would have already been dead. So that would be a wild thing to be surprised about.
Right.
That blood samples from a dead animal.
By the way,
So,
that whole thing once again is another one of those stupid horror movie sequel things where it's like when the other vet is telling Anthony Edwards, I don't understand. Why would you send me blood samples from a dead animal? It's like, because it went to the pet. We know this.
yeah.
So having him be like, my God. Or one of the dumbest, what makes me think Anthony Edwards is a bad veterinarian, when he's listening to the dog and he's like, that's weird. I can't hear this dog's heartbeat, yet it's clearly alive.
Huh.
Yeah.
It must just be too low for me to hear, which would mean the dog would be dead.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, my God, don't you have medical training? What is wrong with you?
Yeah, so I guess it's implied that like you're supposed to infer that like after Church came back to life, Lewis took Church to the vet
Yeah.
to see if he was okay.
And
It's
that
like,
was-
oh wow, okay.
and that was this
weird
guy
thing to make everyone
Who
assume.
I did not clock his name in the movie, but according to IMDb, that character's name is Quentin Yolander, which is the best name in the movie.
Yeah.
Quentin Yolander. Oh man, because actually that was something we were talking about the names earlier, and it was something I meant to say last week, which is King is really good at names,
Yes.
and that's something but like particularly watching this makes you go like, oh right, because that's on when I write stuff. That's one of the hardest things to me is to come up with anyone's name. It's always like, oh Christ, I don't know. But King always has they all sound like real people, but they're hyper specific at the same time, like.
Yeah.
I mean, like Louis Creed is a good name, or all of the names in it I love. They all sound very real, but like I said, unique, Whereas here, yeah, it's just it's Jeff and Chase and Gus and Clyde,
Chase, Drew,
and Amanda, and then Quentin
Amanda,
Yolander.
yeah.
I don't know what writer did what draft where they named a character Quentin Yolander, but
shout out to that person.
yeah. Clancy Brown shows up to ruin everyone's Halloween because he's being a dick, as he always is.
As always.
And the dog tears his throat out. And then just kind of pieces out. That's my favorite. Is the dog kills him. It's just like, y'all be over here now. I've done my business.
Take him to the cemetery.
Yeah.
That's why I killed him.
And then if you thought them carrying that dog was insane, the idea that these two kids carried big 6'5" Clancy Brown, fucking gigantic man. Oh, sorry, 6'3", but still, might as well be 7 feet tall.
Might as well be.
Yeah, I mean, he's
like might as well be impossibly huge.
He's just a he's a big man in every sense, right? Like he's just large. He's just one of those guys who's naturally just large. It's why we always talk about how the casting of him as the Frankenstein monster in the movie The Bride is perfect, even though that movie's not good. But over on Meet the Monsters, one of the best choices ever for the Frankenstein creature was Clancy Brown. Yeah. But yeah, so they carry him. The movie doesn't even bother to show it to you, though. They just show them like dump him in the grave, and then I mean, this is where once again the thought process of the characters, they really losing me, because it's like, are they just going like, well, we kind of are responsible for the death of this stuff. Maybe he'll just come back and it'll be all right. I don't know. What is the thought?
Right,
because they already know that it brought the dog back.
Yeah.
And they just heard the story about the Creed family.
And also, like, the first meeting with Drew is him wishing that Gus was dead.
Yeah. It does seem like just
but
leave
there's
him.
no like conflict in him really about like, this is the like, right, I hate this guy, but my mom and I need him.
Right.
It's just like, well, I guess we better bury him up there.
Yeah, and I said that's the thing. Which is, it feels like the better thing to do would be just take off, because they didn't actually kill him. So if they find this guy having been killed by an animal, aren't your problems solved? Now you've made your problems much worse, because now you've got zombie Clancy Brown.
Yeah, and he's going to hurt your mom.
Oh boy, yeah. When I see when I pulled this up on HBO Max. When you start a movie, it comes up with the rating and the rating reasons. When I see rape listed in there, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
There's no way this will be good. Because I've said this many a time, almost no movie can handle that subject matter well, particularly genre stuff. If you're not making a straight-up drama about it, I'd be real careful about putting that stuff in there. Yeah, or at least... if you must, then imply, But where did I see this in here, too? That apparently... where is this? It's in the... Oh, it's probably in the spoilers section of the IMDb trivia. Well, in here... Anyway, apparently there was believe it or not, there was a considerably more graphic version of this scene.
Oh, my God.
I know. And that's the kind of thing where you're going like, Mary Lambert, come on.
Like, who wanted this?
Yeah.
I would hope it's not the studio.
Yeah. We better have a zombie commit sexual assault in this one. We just didn't go there in the first one. Yeah. Well, and I did. That does remind me earlier. I did like when she and Clancy Brown were having consensual sex, and he wasn't a zombie, and he's just like, "Babe, I just can't. That dog's messing around with the rabbits."
Like, if my rabbits can't get it on, then neither can I.
God, I just can't. I'm sorry, honey. I just can't get it up tonight. Those rabbits are in trouble. God damn it.
God.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, horrifying scene. And also just like, it's another, what a non-character Drew's mother is, because she's just like, oh, that's weird, honey. You're dirty and covered in blood and you reek. And it's just like, no, well.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And then she gets crushed by a potato truck.
Yep. And another great Clancy Brown moment is after she gets crushed by the potato truck, him just driving away with his like, well, handled that.
Yeah.
Just another murder by Clancy Brown.
I barely had to do anything. Let me go
get
this boy corpse.
It definitely does feel like the mandate from the studio was a higher body count, right? Like way more people die in this. Because I do feel like that was I think we might have even read, I don't know if we'd read one of those reviews, but I remember there were some reviews on the first one going, this isn't scary, hardly anybody dies. It's like, yeah, because...
And you know what? I would say a lot of people die in this one, and it's not scary either.
Well, this is often a problem, I feel like, in horror stuff, and I'm sure we both know this from listening to people talk about horror stuff. Sometimes some horror fans conflate gore and death with scares, which is not what I do. Those can often be visceral. Some of those are the most visceral horror movies, but they're not the scariest. Like the first movie is better because it's trying to do what the book does. What a lot of because King can be gory, but I wouldn't say that that's like his main setting. It depends on the book, of course, right?
He himself, and again, I don't know. King says a lot of stuff that then he doesn't actually do.
Oh yeah. But, no one's worse at analyzing his own work than King. Jesus Christ.
But he does say often that it's something like, if I can't scare you, then I'll terrify. If I can't terrify you, I'll try to scare you. If I can't scare you, I'm gonna gross you out.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Well, and
the main point being, if I can go for the gross out, I will.
And I think that's key. I think he will go gross, which can often be the same as gory, but not, but I think that's
a fair point.
And he's definitely gone through phases. We talked about, like, there was distinctly, that 80s period when he was writing things like It and even parts of Pet Cemetery, right? He definitely was gorier then than I think he is now, or even just a little bit later. But it is interesting that Pet Cemetery, for as ghastly as an idea it is, it really is more psychologically terrifying. And it is about... That's the biggest thing I just kept coming back to in this movie. Is like, Pet Sematary was about something. This is about nothing.
Yeah.
Because...
At the end of the day, this movie is not about anything. It's Homer Simpson voice, just a bunch of stuff that happened.
It's... Well, because particularly at this point that we're talking about in the movie, once Clancy Brown comes back and he's a zombie, now we're pretty much just in My Stepdad is a Monster movie, right? Like, it's just like, that's what the movie is. He's going to run around terrorizing everybody as this weird monster. And it's another thing where it's just like, is no one noticing the man looks like death? Like, he's got this graying skin. He's got this real loose bandage over his festering wound.
Pus-filled.
Yeah.
They really just looked at the final shot of Rachel and they were like, that's what all of them are gonna look like.
Yeah. And like I said, and Clancy Brown is the kind of actor who will go like, that's what you want? You fucking got it.
Yeah.
No problem. I can do that in my sleep, man. And then, he just stalks around the rest of the movie as this fucking horrible monster, which he was already, once again, he was already complete trash. That's another thing I think too that's like in like the first movie where it's like, oh, this sweet kid now becomes here it's just like, oh no, a guy who was already the worst person in the world somehow becomes even more evil and dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, and Drew even says again another baffling point as to why they buried him up there. Drew even says like, maybe it depends on what you were like.
Yes. Which
like, so what? So
yeah,
why
further reason to
put him back up there?
Yeah, it once again feels like best case scenario would be like, just leave him out there, and it's like, oh no, my stepdad's dead,
got attacked by an animal.
Now our life is way better.
Sucks.
Because you don't even
insurance money.
No one even saw him near them, so they could just be like, I don't know, we didn't see him, and he just went out in the woods and got eaten or whatever. Too bad. Yeah. No. Instead, you're gonna, and then then you've got, while this is happening, you've got weird pseudo detective story with Anthony Edwards. Once again, he's sending out blood samples, and I also like that it's just also Anthony Edwards. How do you not put together that Clancy Brown shot that dog? Because they're just like, I don't know, somebody shot that dog, and then when the dog is back, Drew just being like, could the dog just stay with you?
Yeah.
Unless we forget, I fucked your wife.
We've talked about how frustrating and like pointless Anthony Edwards stuff is because he's like he's learning all of the stuff that the audience and Jeff. Yeah. It's like Jeff and Anthony Edwards, Edward Furlong. I'm switching between character names and actor names, but like they're both like learning about all of this stuff. Like Jeff learns about it first, and then Anthony Edwards starts learning about it.
Which just creates this weird, like, it just never feels like the movie is ever getting up to running speed, right? It's always just like, because pretty much every piece of information Edward Furlong. And then, of course, you have to have Anthony Edwards go like, well, that's not possible. Which, God, I once again, if you listen to Meet the Monsters, you've heard me complain about this before, but I hate these movies that drag out people going like, no, it can't be, where it's just like, no, I feel like I would pretty quickly accept that. I'm a total skeptic, non-supernatural person. But, like, all it would take is a couple things for me to go like, well, it's clearly a fucking zombie. Like, Jesus Christ, look at it, man. The dog doesn't have a heartbeat and it's still alive. Are you kidding me? Something supernatural's happening.
Yeah, I feel like there's a middle ground there, though. Yeah. Like, I would prefer a middle ground to that because, like, I don't like necessarily if someone were to be like, oh well, yeah, I believe that.
That's true. There's like there is it can go too far the other way. Yes.
Yeah, like some sort of middle ground. Like I don't know.
I need to
stop trying to make this movie better.
Well, that's always the problem. It's because there are a couple interesting beginnings of ideas here. I think that's the thing that's frustrating is you're going like, oh, there could be an interesting movie here. Or if the whole movie was just, if they did, I honestly, strip the whole thing down, I would lose all the Edward Furlong stuff, really, and just make it about the kid with the evil stepfather who comes back as a zombie. That's probably not going to be a great movie, but that's going to at least be like a movie that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can like, you'd be able to flesh out some of the stuff that's lacking in it, and maybe don't have the dog kill him.
Right, no, yeah, something like that, yeah. I mean, bring the mother and have the mother kill him and then freak out or something like that.
Or Drew, accidentally, have Drew accidentally shoot him or so. Like how he tries to towards the end of the film.
I do like when Drew pulls out a shotgun on him and is just going to blow him away.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that it happened. And Stan Anthony Edwards is the one who blows his brains out.
Yeah.
Because, sure.
Because the movie gets the movie closer to being over. So
well, that's the other thing too, is it feels like they needed to, if they were going to build up to the fight between Clancy Brown and Anthony Edwards, they needed to build up
more scenes together.
I was going to say, there's really only that one scene where he's just like, I fucked your wife, and then of course, oh god, all right, when the fucking Sematary calls Anthony Edwards and goes,
oh god, right,
hey, strangest thing just happened. So Clancy Brown ends up killing, as we talked about, both his wife and stepson by forcing them into the oncoming path of a potato truck. You know how you're always seeing just open trucks full of potatoes driving around? Oh, all the time, man. Biggest tragedy in this movie, somebody's not getting their potatoes.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's going to cost somebody a lot of money.
A lot of food waste there.
Hate to see it. But yeah, so he kills them, so it's like, great, that's taken care of. And so then the Cemetery calls. Oh no, so he goes to Edward Furlong, right? Doesn't Clancy Brown kind of go, I can bring your mom back, sort of? Or is that, it's implied? How does Edward Furlong, because the weirdest thing is Edward Furlong becomes obsessed with bringing his mom back, but then it's off screen, yes. But then it's Clancy Brown that actually gets the body of the mother.
Yeah. Because after the potato truck, he goes and picks up the dead boy kid body. And
yes, because before he kills the mother and the son, he kills the kid from Big with the back tire of the dirt bike. Turns his face into a hamburger. Which is great. Clancy Brown looks great, just getting sprayed with viscera. Then he kills them. Then he goes back and gets the kid, because at some point he's like, I'm going to need it. This is where he's like, I'm going to need a henchman later.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
All right.
I'm reading the...
No, because you have to. The movie's such a mess.
Wikipedia. Okay. So what happens after he gets Clyde's body is we smash cut to like a news report about Drew and Amanda being dead.
Yes, that's right. Which is the most tragedy strikes today.
God.
And that's right, because they were killed and hit by a potato truck, and then it's just an answer like, oh yeah, also this kid's missing.
Yeah. So yeah. So it just says on here, after Drew's funeral, Jeff decides to reanimate his mother. Gus exhumes her corpse and brings it to Jeff at the burial ground.
Yeah, okay. This is what I can't figure out, is where Gus and Jeff, how they're connected.
Yeah.
Because what? But the scene. The scene with the cemetery director is my favorite, because he's just going, he calls Anthony Edwards, he goes, you better come out here, because the weirdest thing happened. The sheriff was here burying his wife and stepson. Literally, he was at their funeral. He
goes to the funeral, yeah.
And then he goes, oh, while I'm here, let's kill two birds with one stone. I need to exhume Anthony Edwards' wife's body for reasons. And he goes like, well, I don't know about that. He has something where he's like, well, I didn't show me any papers or anything, but he's the sheriff. What am I supposed to do? And so he just dug her. He goes, he literally says, I didn't think anything of it until he opened up her coffin and grabbed the body. So he just chucks the wife's body in his trunk, and then they make a point of saying he smashes through the headstones of his family.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, seems kind of strange to me. I don't know. I thought you... Anyway, Anthony Edwards, thought you might be interested in hearing about that, because kind of weird.
Hi.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my part of the movie. See ya. And somehow, though, Anthony Edwards hears all that and goes, oh my God, my son is trying to bring my dead wife back.
Which, like...
Why? What is that? Because
A to F, I guess.
They tell him that story, and he literally in the movie goes, oh no, Jeff. You're like, wait a minute.
Well, okay. Wait. I'm remembering now. Hold
okay. Wait, I watched this movie yesterday.
It's
Let
all
me
coming
see.
back to me.
Yeah.
I know. I literally watched this movie like 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
So after the funeral, I think Jeff is up in the attic.
Yes.
And
he's getting all of the mom's stuff out, right?
Yeah, and he's wearing a suit. And so his dad comes up.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, getting stuff ready for mom.
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
right.
Your mom's dead, bud.
Yeah.
And Jeff's like, she doesn't have to be. And that's when he gets the call from the funeral director.
That's what it is. Yes. Okay. So
Back
the confusion, the confusion is, and this is just a plot hole in the movie. And I'm somebody who's wanted to use the term plot holes, but this truly is where the connect. It's that Clancy Brown to Edward Furlong connection that I don't understand.
Yeah, because literally what happens is Clancy Brown, like Clyde is trying to, I don't know how he's intending to take Jeff's nose off with just by like rotating a bike tire with his hand, but whatever.
Yeah.
But Clancy Brown comes and intervenes and says to Jeff, go home.
Yeah.
And then the next interaction they have on screen is Clancy Brown bringing him the body.
Right. Which I'm just
there's a conversation, and it's also like Jeff's switch turning off screen. There's another
but also it's
part of that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, it requires two weird jumps in character. One is Jeff suddenly being evil, and then also Clancy Brown being kind of good in a certain because he saves him from the bully, kills the bully, and turns him into a henchman. But then
I wouldn't say that's good.
It's not good, but it's
he makes a switch from like being self-serving to doing what Jeff wants.
He's protecting Jeff, right? I mean, he's going about it in this incredibly dark and gory way. I'm not saying not objectively good, but I guess for him, he is attempting to do good by this kid at least, which is weird though because. And then there's a one-off line that they, I think, try to explain it. When Anthony was like, why'd you bring my wife back? He's like, to fuck her. Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
So is Clancy Brown's motivation then supposed to be like, great, now I'll have my zombie bride of my high school girlfriend?
Unclear.
It's the only thing I can possibly grab from what the movie is telling me, which is insane. And if that's the case, a lot more needs to be set up for that. But no, we're in the climax of the movie, so it's too late.
So you know what?
Whatever. Let's just have everybody fight each other, which is basically because the mother does come back.
Yes.
The greatest, perhaps the greatest makeup job done by a funeral home, I'm assuming, because we know they all carry the scars, and later we'll see that her makeup melts off. And because she looks amazing, of course. And she's doing the classic monster movie thing about like, oh, we can all be together again. Don't you love me?
Family.
Yeah. But also psycho Clancy Brown is running around. And then, it turns into this, once again, it does feel like somebody went like, we need to action up this ending. Where exactly does Edward Furlong be like, oh, wait a minute, no. I can't remember. Upon coming back to life, Renee it's that she kills the housekeeper.
Is it that's why Jeff gets mad?
Renee stands because Jeff confronts his undead mother. An undead Clyde arrives and tries to kill Yeah, I don't actually know if he ever. I don't exactly know. I think maybe that's certainly. I don't know, but yeah, for no reason because
Yeah, it's like
they've once again
I'm
picked up this
half
thread.
I'm half remembering that like she tells Jeff to go downstairs while she and the dad talk, but when he opens the door, Clyde is there and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill you," and then she locks the attic door. So I
Yeah,
think he is like maybe like assuming that like, oh, she just wants me to die. Because I mean,
yeah.
she does scream several times as she is dying
Oh, this
again
is the
that dead is
worst.
better.
That's the worst. That is the
Yeah,
worst to
it's
me. It is the most
yeah,
desperate. Like, remember that thing everybody loved in the first movie? Let's jam it in here for no reason.
for no reason. And like to like basically completely like twist that message, that line and the
Yeah.
meaning of it.
Dead is better. But wait, yeah, I guess shouldn't the line technically be undead is better?
Mm,
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
that doesn't work.
It doesn't.
But yeah, so it leads to the Anthony Edwards shoots Clancy Brown, and Edward Furlong kills Clyde Parker, not Barker, Parker. Every time they said though, I was like, am I hearing that right? Okay. By putting a live wire in his mouth and causing his head to explode.
Literally explode.
Yeah, which I love for its insanity, but is just like, okay, well we're in a full on cartoon now. And then at a certain point, the mother is the one who lights the house on fire, right?
Yeah,
All right,
does
now I
she
got.
also get electrocuted again?
I think she might. But wants to spend quality time with her husband. Renee locks Chase and both boys in the attic, which she then sets on fire.
Oh, she sets it on fire.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then yeah, so she's basically just like everything's is the idea basically just like everything's burning? We gotta figure this out, and this is the dead is better. And then at a certain point, Anthony Edwards is kind of like, I don't know, maybe we should. All of a sudden, Anthony Edwards is like tempted to stay with the dead wife very briefly because it's Edward Furlong goes like, no, Dad, it's not her. We've reversed roles.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It's because it's like 30 seconds where there's like, oh, let's also maybe do because this movie wants to have it all ways, right? Like,
yeah.
so it's just like, oh yeah,
I remember Anthony Edwards like trying to be like I can't get out by myself. Jeff, you have to leave. And Jeff being like, no, we're gonna get out together.
yeah, that definitely happens.
That's what I remember.
So they get out, and then we get some voiceover going like, and then everything was okay.
Yeah.
And then
the
weirdest thing,
off.
the weirdest part of this movie. Yeah.
And we get like like oval shaped faded frame short clips of all the faces of all the people who died in the movie, like it's some sort of fucking memorial.
I love it because it's just like, oh man, you thought we were done being super weird? Check this shit out. And I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Am I supposed to be like, oh man, we lost Clancy Brown? That guy fucking sucked. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. They're all treated with this. At
first, I thought that was gonna be the credits, but then they didn't put the name, and they just kept doing the photos, and I was like,
you thought they were gonna go like Predator, where they do the like sitcom?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in Predator, because it comes out of nowhere, is they're all doing like, ha ha, yeah, and you're just like, they're all dead. What is this? What
was
kind
this
of movie?
filmed in front of a live studio audience?
It does feel that way. Where you're just like Carl Weathers, and he's like, "Oh, I definitely got ripped apart by a predator." Once again, it's just like one more totally baffling decision from this movie.
And then the end credits song is a off-brand Ramones Pet Sematary.
It's a Ramones song called Poison Heart that is not written for this movie.
No.
It's just a Ramones song. But I just love the idea they're like, well, we can't get the Ramones, but maybe we can just license one of their songs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's once again one of the more highlights of the movie. It's a pretty good Ramones song, I think. I don't know, Poison Heart's all right, but it's just like, there you go, folks. Pet Sematary 2. It's terrible.
Terrible.
And pretty much there is, like anything, this is kind of one of the things that annoys me about, amongst many things that annoys me about internet discussion and stuff, but like any horrible movie, there has to be some little cult that's like, actually, it's great. And look, there's plenty of movies I like. We both have talked, we both are on the record as liking plenty of things that people, but like, come on, you guys, this is not
like
worth
this.
This is not some hidden gem. This is the exact definition of like totally cynical studio cash grab.
Yeah.
There's really nothing to be salvaged from this thing. It's exactly we were just talking about that. It might have been in the last episode. We were talking about how both of us often will kind of go with a movie if it's made with sincerity, if it's made with earnestness. I can at least like go. This though is you can, like I said, you can feel all the rewrites, you can feel the studio manipulation. This is not at all what, like I said, the first one where it stumbled. I believe Mary Lambert. I can feel it in the moment she goes like, I just loved that book and I wanted to bring it to the screen, and she was absolutely so sincerely trying to do that. And then here, I can't imagine she was happy with this product. How could anyone be?
How could anyone be?
Yeah. Well, I will say, though, under the accolades section of the Wikipedia, Clancy Brown was nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the 1993 Fangoria Chainsaw Awards.
You know, again, right? Like, even... Like, I'm wondering if that is maybe where some of the cult stuff shows up. Like,
that does. As I was saying, I do see a lot of the reviews and comments talking about how great Clancy Brown is.
Yeah,
and how funny he is.
On the one hand, yes, because he's an incredibly skilled actor and he is very good at.
He gets the assignment.
He is the definition of no small parts. Like that is to me the epitome of that. Like.
A lot of my favorite, he's in the list of like a lot of my favorite actors are people who will come in and are just like, I don't care what the material is, I'm going to act the hell out of this thing. Yeah. Those are the people I love. They don't look down on the material. Yeah.
But I don't, like, he does not see, like, his performance is entertaining, I suppose, to a certain degree.
Sure.
But it is not worth it.
No, and also, the other thing is, because he is such a good actor, there's like 40 other performances that are way better. Watch him as the Kurgan, where he's completely out of control, but it fits the movie, you know?
Watch any episode of SpongeBob is better than this.
Absolutely. He was the voice of Lex Luthor on the Superman animated series. He's fucking great. He just shows up. He's awesome. He was just in John Wick Chapter 4, and he's awesome in it. Like, the guy is amazing. So it's like that, that alone... there's any number of performances. The guy has 328 IMDb credits, okay? Choose almost any of those, I feel
literally almost anything else.
Yeah, it is just sort of a thing where it's like, okay. I mean, he's better in the fucking terrible Warcraft movie. You know? So, yeah, I just think that's it. By the way, he lost to Anthony Hopkins for Bram Stoker's Dracula, which, agreed. I love Hopkins in that movie. Yeah. And you can go go into our backlog and listen to
if you have a strong stomach
and listen to the episode that went so long we had to split into 2 parts about that on Meet the Monsters, because Brendan and I were about to kill each other about that movie. Anyway, Jesus, Pet Sematary 2, a movie that actually it turned a profit, $8 million budget, it made 17 worldwide, so technically a success. Yeah. I guess. Although clearly they didn't rush into Pet Sematary 3 anytime soon. It's another, it's another what? 17? No, more than that. 22 years before they revisit this. Is that right?
Right? No, it'd be
22. Like. Yeah, no, 27. Sorry, 27.
27. Yeah,
Numbers
I
are
was gonna
not
say,
my thing.
John, John, I was born the year after this movie came out, and I'm 30, so
Yeah, numbers are not my thing. I'm
it's
kind of
fine.
a
I'm not really a math guy.
no, Lord, no. But yeah, before Paramount, who maintained the license to this, though, they don't revisit it again until 2019. So we'll get back to Pet Sematary someday. Ooh, I'm just seeing now that the Pet Sematary audiobook is read by Michael C. Hall. I need to listen to that.
Yes, it's very
I
good.
need to listen to that. I love Michael C. Hall. All right, let's talk about some people who did and did not like this movie with our
Yes, I'm
highs and
fast.
lows.
Well, I mean, we've discussed it a little
Yeah,
bit, but yeah, I'm fascinated to hear.
I'm going to start with the negative one because that's kind of where we are a little bit with it, and I just love this person, their whole attitude. This comes from IMDb user Mr. Six, and the review is, as we would say, accurately titled, "Why? Why do I do this to myself? Why, when the original was so incredibly bad, so unredeemable, so completely bereft of entertainment value, did I ever see Pet Sematary 2?" Yeah, don't agree with that first part. But still, why did I ever see Pet Sematary 2? And why in heaven's name did I go to a theater to see it?
Oh,
Some questions, I guess, can never be answered. But as far as this inexcusable sequel goes, why was it made? The main thing the two have in common is that otherworldly cemetery, the title, where people bury dead dogs, abusive sheriffs, bullies, and dead parents. It has the same director, too. None of the same characters from the original are back, though. All dead, you know. Well, not the one, but that's all right. Too bad that actors like Furlong, Edwards, Rushton, and Clancy Brown, who can be good when he has to be, got stuck in this mess. I would once again back up. Clancy Brown is always good, even if the material's
yeah.
bad. But
Okay.
it's similar to he's the Fred Gwynn of this movie, although it's not as bad, or this is a worse movie.
Yeah.
Because there's not one honest moment of entertainment here to be found, and believe me, I was looking hard for one. Remember the tagline for the original? Sometimes dead is better? That should have went for two, not as a tagline, but as a production note. No stars. If I could rate it lower, I would. This is over 90 minutes of my life gone forever. I'll never get those minutes back, and I could have used them for something of purpose. For instance, to petition against unnecessary sequels, like this one. 1 out of 10 stars. We really broke this guy.
Yeah. Damn.
Now, here's an interesting... I guess they're referring to us on this one, Elliott, when because this is MJ Fan 1 writes, "People take this movie the wrong way!" Exclamation point. People definitely take this movie the wrong way. If Mary Lambert wanted to make it more like the first one, she would have. She obviously didn't mean to make it so that at the end you say, "Oh my God, that was so horrifying." If those were her intentions, she wouldn't have gotten as far as she did in Hollywood to begin with. Take the other movies she made, in part, for example. Like the first Pet Sematary and Urban Legends, I didn't hear many complaining about them. Even if you absolutely hated the plot, the music, and the animal violence, which, believe me, I hated more than anyone, there's no way you couldn't have at least liked this movie. Here we go. Clancy Brown is one hell of an actor, not to mention a funny and handsome one. His performance as Gus was like no other. I can't think of anyone who would have done the part better. He's the best at everything he does, and it pisses me off that he's not out there like he should be. That's interesting, because he's actually in a ton of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
He's pretty well
Big
respected.
Clancy Brown fan over here.
Yeah, I mean, look, for what he's done and the great way he's acted and still does, he should be mentioned on television and in magazines a hell of a lot more. But anyway, back to the movie. Bottom line is, if you don't like scary spoofs, then don't watch them. I haven't heard anyone complain about any of the scary movies. And besides, you continued to watch Pet Sematary even though you didn't like it the way it was going in the first place. So you must have taken some interest in it. That is all. ... I love you, Clancy Brown. This is
Girl, he's not gonna fuck you.
This is an interesting thing. A lot of people who are favor of the movie seem to latch onto it as like, no, this one's funny. It's campy. It's like, I don't think that's intentional, though. At least not the way they're talking about. Like when they said the scary movies.
If it is intentional, that does not come through in any way, in
No.
any meaningful way.
It's also that classic, it's something I hate that people do a lot, where it's like, if something's bad, then a lot of people go like, well, no, it was kind of meant to be. It's sort of the like, you can always go back to that, right? I always bring up the Tommy Wiseau in The Room, right? Where it's like, he was trying to make a serious melodrama, and then when people laughed, he sort of backed into like, no, it's this great comedy. It's like, that's not what you meant. You failed to make something serious, and now you're just sort of like embracing that people think it's dumb, but don't pretend that was ever the intention.
I don't know.
I mean, that guy is that guy.
I think
right?
there is there could be something to that, but like, actually, no. So I think what I was going to try to say was like, I think embracing the reaction to it is one thing that I can respect.
That's
but
different
like
than
what you're saying, the
making
like,
it the intention.
Pretending that,
and like that. This movie was meant to scare people, right? Like that was the intention of making it.
And the reason why I say that it doesn't, that if it was meant to be funny, that doesn't come across in a meaningful way, is because it seems like everybody is playing it kind of straight.
Everybody's playing it kind of straight, and there's truly horrific things in it that, though they don't land as horror, you wouldn't put them in if you wouldn't have a sexual assault scene in something that was meant to be funny. And if you were, then you've really missed the boat.
Then we got other problems.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, it's just like, no, they seem to be going for scares and failing, but I don't think it fails enough to be enjoyable as like a riffable movie either. It's because like I said, this movie feels too cynically made. Like I said, it feels too much like a studio hatchet job. The best bad movies are the things like The Room, where it's like, no, in fact, dude, the sincerity of what you were trying to do is what's fun about it. It's why, like, I'm a huge fan of the podcast How This Get Made, and they stopped doing the Sharknado movies at a certain point because they're like, no, they're trying to be bad. This isn't fun.
Yeah.
And so so that's Pet Sematary 2. I would say firmly you can go ahead and skip this one. Leave this one outside the canon. Stephen King's name isn't on it for a reason.
As far as sequels to Stephen King films that have absolutely nothing to do with the original film, I would say even watch A Return to Salem's Lot instead of watching this.
A Return to Salem's Lot is a lot more fun than this, really. And it's completely insane. It's super dumb, but it's at least it's taken a swing more than this one, at least.
Yeah.
Well, we're going the complete opposite next week, because we are going back to the Overlook Hotel. And this time, Stephen King's going to get it right, folks.
He's going to get it right. He is not going to get it right.
I mean, he is going to... I will say, the one thing I'll say about it, I think he succeeds in what he was trying to do, in that he puts everything from the book into a movie.
Yes, I suppose in that sense, he got it 100% right.
Yeah, he succeeded.
We'll see how it turns out.
Yikes. It's not, famously... at best forgotten, I feel like, right? Like, I've talked to some people about like doing the show and stuff like that, and I will say a lot of people are like, "There's another Shining." It's like, no, but no,
not one that anybody thinks about.
So it's 1997. We're jumping all the way 1997 for what was definitely called Stephen King's The Shining. And it'll be our first Mick Garris directed thing. A name that is a big deal in King adaptations.
It is. Stephen King's best friend, Mick Garris.
Yeah, that's what he calls himself. His business cards actually, it says Mick Garris, film director / Stephen King's best friend. So yes, that will be next week on the show. Of course, if you want bonus content from this show and all the shows of the Punch Up Entertainment Network, head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.podbean.com/punchup. There you can get, as we mentioned, probably some exclusive bonus content from this very show. So head over and do that. But that's going to do it for this episode. So until next week, the case file is closed. There we go. Ooh, that was a good one.
Hi. My name is Stephen King. I'm gonna scare the hell out of you, and that's a promise.